Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Narita McInnes.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Narita McInnes. It is so awesome to be here with you as always. And as always, today is another very exciting day because I have yet another very special guest. She is a mother, a partner, an educator, an incredible woman with a PhD in behavioural neuroscience and more, who is on a mission to make the topics of neuroscience and epigenetics easy to understand and use in your practice, your business, and your life. There is, of course, so much more to this amazing woman. She is the beautiful inside and out Dr. Val Rytova. Val, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you, and thanks for that warm welcome. Sometimes when people say, like, they talk about you, you're like, oh, is that really me?
Yeah, and it is, mate.
Like, yeah.
And there's so much more that I could have put in there too. Like, you know, not only do you have a PhD, you've got all this other stuff that you've done. So maybe before we sort of dive into our epic chinwag, because I know it will be, do you want to let people know a little bit about you? Who is Val?
Sure. Well, as you said before, there's, Val is multifaceted. All right. So I am a behavioral neuroscientist as a profession, and I've been doing that for, let's say, nearing 10 years now. And, and I've done it in different iterations. So yes, starting with a PhD, then working in the lab here in Melbourne, where I'm currently located. Then I've taught at universities. Then I've ran workshops, and now I'm on like this journey of freelance neuroscience. Yeah, I know it's a new term. Maybe it'll become a new profession after I give it a good go. But yeah, I'm freelancing, which means that I'm literally offering my expertise and knowledge and the lingo of neuroscience to empower people in whatever it is that, they want to learn through the lens of neuroscience, to validate them, so to speak. So it's my little niche. And so far, I'm really, really enjoying it because aside from being a neuroscientist, I'm also very spiritual, so I'm very interested. And hence I love your podcast because, you explore various dimensions of all of that in your podcast. So I'm just thrilled to be here because I froth that as well. I froth the metaphysics, like quantum physics, alternate realities, parallel worlds, spirit guides, angel, all of that stuff. Like, I'm into that as well. So in addition to being a neuroscientist, I'm also, a spiritual warrior of a sense, if you will. And yeah, of course, I'm a mom. I've got two beautiful boys of completely different ages, 8 years apart. So I've got a little baby and an 8-year-old, and they're very different, but they're also very much my legacy, if that makes sense. Like, they're also very intelligent, and I feel like whatever I start here on Earth in this time, they will take in their own iteration, of course, and make it more abundant, if that makes sense. Yes, I'm a partner. I've got an awesome partner. We're here in Melbourne. He loves fishing. That's his thing. I love neuroscience and spirituality. He's like, I love fishing, amongst other things, of course. And look, what else? And I love kite surfing, by the way. If you didn't know, that's another thing I really, really do. Yeah, I love kite surfing. That's how I wound up in Australia. I just kind of wanted to do a PhD somewhere where I could kite surf locally, and Melbourne was that place. So I was like, I'll come here and I'll kite surf. And, and I still do that. It's just, I love playing in the elements.
Oh, that is so cool. And kite surfing is really like good for your belly and everything, because you have to use all your muscles. Like, you can't fall off. Like,
you really do. You can, and it's fun, and once, I think, there's also a misconception because people are like, oh, I'm going to kite surf and I'm going to, fly away. It's not like that. You obviously need to learn it, like you do need to learn how to drive a manual car, for example. But once you learn it, it's awesome. It's easy, it's beautiful, it requires a lot of finesse. So I like it. Although it is a very male-dominated sport, it is quite a finesse sport. So if you're out there and you've never tried it and you're like, I won't because it's all a dude thing, it's really not.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like the windy days. You want it to be windy because that's when the action happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And actually, you know what? I went to Adelaide for a national kite surfing competition. That's where I was last because I know that's where you're located, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I went there to compete in kite surfing. That's why I was there last. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. That is awesome. That is awesome. I might have to check it out. I'll watch them and I'm like in awe when I do. I'm like, these people are nuts, but it looks so cool. And I can imagine like, do you do the somersaults in the air as well? Like I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You
Yeah.
do all sorts of rotations, jumps, like whatever you're into, really. But I think it's
Mm,
just the joy of playing in the elements, really, because
mm,
it's not like you're not behind a motorboat. Like there's no mechanics to it other than the elements, water, air, sun, although you can do it in the nighttime with glow sticks, but like and you and your body. And it's
yeah.
just like it's really magical. Yeah.
Oh, that is so
Um,
cool.
so yeah, I guess that's another thing I love. But and numerology, of course, which we just completed Georgina Grace's course, and now I'm
Yes.
really into that as well because it adds another dimension of that, you know, sciencey spirituality
Mm,
to my life, which is what I'm about. Hmm.
mm. Yeah, and that's been such a phenomenal course and so cool looking at your numbers and to see how your brain, like I can tell, like you're a quick thinker and you pick things up really well and really fast, which is awesome. And I guess that's probably why you study and are all involved in neuroscience. So maybe for people who don't know, well, Narita, you're talking about neuroscience. What does that even mean, Val?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Neuroscience, the study of the brain, well, of the nervous system, actually. That's a
Mm,
very good point. So neuroscience is a an exploration, a study of the nervous system, not just the brain. Of course, I'm fascinated by the brain, but in addition to, the brain, part of the nervous system, we've also got the spinal cord and all the peripheral nervous system, all the associated things. So yeah, the brain's a big deal, but then there's multiple other aspects of the nervous system. And that's what neuroscience really attempts to study is the nervous system and how um, it interrelates with the outside world and relays all that information into our body. So it's a bit of a, I guess, connector of us, maybe our soul and the external environment, if you will, you
mm,
know.
yeah.
Um, and there are also various branches to neuroscience. Of course, I'm a behavioral neuroscientist, so I'm really interested in behavior, love, anxiety, fear, depression or ecstasis. That's not even a thing, but happiness, let's say, or ecstasy. What I wanted to say,
Yeah.
like that behavior. I love exploring that, and I think that's the kind of neuroscientist I am, and I do that on a very hardcore neuroscience level. What I mean by that, like looking at the molecules behind all that, like what are the tiny little things, what are the exchanges in your brain that happen as you experience those emotions, like what drives that. um but then there's so many other realms of neuroscience you can jump into. There's neurosciences that are studying just memory, like, hey, how do we remember? Let's explore that. There's neuroscientists that study disease pathology, like Alzheimer's, motor neuron disease, schizophrenia, you name it, whatever those states as well.
Mhm,
So it's a vast field, really. It's
mhm,
really a vast field, and I'm an expert in a part of it, you
mm,
know. But at the same time, being the spiritual nature that I am, I think I like to think of neuroscience also as a language, or maybe being a multi-language person. I speak multiple languages, yeah. I like to think of it as a language. It's like speaking another language. And part of my role here on Earth at this time, I think, is to relay that language from just the one population, the neuroscientist population, to the rest of the world.
mm,
Hey, there's things that we've been talking about as a little cohort, but I want to make it known to the world so that it's really out there, available to everybody.
yeah. And you know what? Like, I love that you're doing that because we all have our own gifts and understandings of things. And if you can make the complex simple, I think that's a sign of someone who is very clever and is able to relay that to other people. And the thing is, because all of us can't know everything. We're experts in what we know. So when someone can explain to us in simple terms, hey, this is what's going on, like, oh, we get it. We get it, like it's so powerful, all of that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it? Mm,
Oh, it's amazing. And it's why I love your podcast, because you got so like an array of these people. I'm listening to one person, they've been abducted by aliens, and other guys like an expert in gold. I'm like, yeah, I want I don't have a lifetime of experience in coins, but it's like by listening to these experts, I get a glimpse and understanding, which otherwise, as you say, you just wouldn't.
mm. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just wouldn't. Yeah. And one of the things that you do that I love, and that in the work that I do, so I work with people helping them to reprogram their subconscious mind. And what we're doing, which you would know very well, is we're rewiring our neuroplasticity. We're rewiring, we're building those muscles of our brain and our internal belief systems and thoughts and patterns and all that sort of stuff. And that's something that I find so cool, because we can literally heal ourselves by doing this work. And I know you'll geek out with me on this, because that's how powerful it is. And for me, I've just put it into a simple format, created a framework, the frequency shift activation, and people are using that and they're seeing results every day. Like,
Yeah.
so do you want to talk about that and geek out with me on that?
Oh, absolutely. And when you said that, like I had this light bulb moment, because in the course that, we'll talk about soon, that
Mm,
I've prepared for people that
yeah.
has to do with neuroplasticity, I want to provide them with hands-on applications, which of course what you're doing is a hands-on application of neuroplasticity. So I think we need to coordinate, but hold that thought, but I want to give people like actual, things like that
Mm,
that they can go and run with and transform their life,
yeah.
as you say. But look, neuroplasticity is amazing, right? Because for the longest time in the world of science and neuroscience, people were like, no, the brain's only malleable when you're a kid. When you're born, you're a baby, you have this plastic or adaptable brain to learn about the world, da 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 da. And then once childhood's over, that's it. You are who you are. Your brain's hardwired. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And that's literally that. I can't believe that it was a predominant thought or theory for such a long time,
Mm,
until some people started to say, like, no, even the adult brain can change itself. It really can. And of course, it can happen in numerous different ways. It could happen to, oh, you get a blow to the head, then your brain will rewire itself such that you can function normally. Well,
mm,
normally even, but over time, whatever normal is, right? It's
yeah.
different for everybody.
Yeah.
But or and then it's like, well, you can learn new things. You can learn new behaviors. You can change as a person. You can alter your behavioral patterns, your outlook on life, your mindset, your relationships, your like everything, your whole world in a way, through neuroplasticity.
Mm,
And that became a theme. And of course, it didn't get to that point in a moment. It took a while.
yeah.
It took a while. And that's kind of what I'm covering in my course, the bit of history about that, like, all the pushback that people got. And some scientists or psychiatrists or some people in the field that were like, no, look at what's happening. Here's a person with epilepsy. They only have half a brain, but let's look at their life now and how they're managing. Like, if you saying that the brain is not malleable, then if you have half a brain, ultimately you shouldn't be able to function that well. But this person somehow is. And what about that? Let's explore that. And thanks to these pioneers, there's this body of knowledge now about, yeah, the brain is malleable. Whether you're a child or an adult, you can alter it on a physical level. Yeah.
Mm,
Like literally form new pathways in your brain, but
mm,
also on a functional level. Let's say you're missing a part of your brain, you can actually alter the way that behaviors take place in the brain, so they don't need that part of your brain anymore. They're like, okay, we'll just go another way to produce that same behavior. No problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find it amazing. And I think with the work that you do, such a great application because, a thought is like I said on Georgina's podcast, and I love to use this analogy, but it is a circuit. It's a circuit. Yeah. Like a loop in the brain on a physical level. You can just picture like a neuron, a circuit. And an electrical signal goes round and round and round if you're thinking that same thought over and over and over again. Eventually that thought becomes a belief. Like if it's gone around that many times, that circuit's now quote unquote hardwired. Not really, but it's strong. Yeah. So that's now a belief. And of course, your beliefs create your reality. So then you're walking around with a bunch of circuits in your brain that have formulated from your thoughts, which I appreciate are impacted by environment, upbringing, all of that. But nonetheless, they're your quote unquote thoughts that then become your beliefs, that then become your reality. And with neuroplasticity tools such as, the frequency shift journal, you can alter that. And as you say, you're seeing results. People are like rewiring their brains, their belief systems, their patterns, their conditioning. They're jigging their brain around to produce new things in their life. And that's amazing, and that's really amazing. I think on a hardcore neuroscience level, like if you're a neuroscientist, you're like, oh yeah, you shift a bunch of things and you get a new behavior. But that's like a very dull way of putting it. Like I think and that's the kind of work I want to bring out there, because amongst neuroscientists, like, oh yeah, you just shift a bunch of things, you get a new behavior, so what? But it's like, no. A person can have a whole new life, a whole new worldview. They can find themselves in this whole new reality based on changing a couple of things in their brain.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, you go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I've got more to say,
I
right?
know. I was seeing it come
people.
in, so I'm like, oh, I'll stop.
I'm gonna be one of those people, I was like, as I listen to these podcasts, it's a new thing. I used to never listen to podcasts, but now I do. I guess my brain's changed. Neuroplasticity happened. Now I'm into podcasts. What do you know? A new behavior. But I've been listening to podcasts and I'm like, these people, which now I realize I'm one of, is like they can just talk for an hour, like that guy who talked about gold, and like I was like, oh my gosh, but I could listen to him for 5 hours, but he just kept talking, and I'm like, and now I'm like him, so that's good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, but it's just there's so much. I'm so excited about it, and I think I lost my train of thought of what I was going to say, but it'll come back. Oh no, this is what I was going to say, is that neuroplasticity can happen in various ways as well. Like the cause of it could be, you can start a practice such as the frequency shift journal, or a meditation practice, or, start listening to podcasts, or I don't know, you go and do an ayahuasca journey in like that, that's one way of doing neuroplasticity. Like, right? But it can also happen, quote unquote, to you. If you move country, you surround yourself with a completely new environment, your brain will adapt to that. So I think it could happen both ways. You can be the generator of it, like the initiator, like, yeah, I'm going to take this new practice, and I'm going to change my brain. Or it'll happen to you as life goes on, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the work that I do, and I'm sure you do as well, it's that consciously and on purpose stuff. It's when you want to change, you're here for more, but you don't know where to start. Like that's the consciously and on purpose stuff. All right, well, what do I want? And if you don't know what I want, you ask, well, I want to see what I want, or show me what I want. And that the subconscious mind works so powerfully, and it will show you. And then you just have to be open and receptive to the signs and all that sort of stuff to come through, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And this is such a great interlink between the brain and the heart, right? Which is one of my new practices, because I'm being a neuroscientist, I'm very cerebral, duh, right? But then also being into spirituality. And I think just being a human being, I'm like, listen, I have a heart
Yeah.
and there's something happening here that is distinct from what's happening up here. So I've been on this mission to connect the two rather than just being very like, okay, let's rationalize this.
Mm,
What are you saying? Let's logic our way out of this. Because I've done that and I've done
mm,
a lot of that.
yeah.
And I find it only takes you to a certain space, and
Mhm.
I'm ready to go beyond that space, if you will. So I'm really working with both the heart space as well as the brain
Mm.
and interconnecting the two to see what miracles we can create.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so with you on that because our heart really is the center of it all, and it sends the signals to the brain. So, I
Yeah,
mean, that, when people have a feeling like well, you have a gut feeling, you feel it in your gut as well, that's connected too. And then if something happens, you
absolutely.
put your hand on your heart, like it's the everything. It's like a holistic thing, and the brain can't just be out on its own, can it?
No, and when it is, not so good things happen in
Yeah.
what is what, for the lack of a better expression, when the brain's on its own, you get kind of robbed in there.
Yeah.
Don't stay in there for too long.
Mm.
It can only logic it way, itself out of certain situations, but as I said, limited.
Limited,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It's so cool everything that you're doing. And another thing that you talk about is epigenetics. And I
Yeah.
think for some people will know what that means, but maybe for those who don't, or just they know the term but they want to understand it better, can you explain it in simple terms for us all?
Absolutely. Look, epigenetics, I know, complicated word even, but what it is we've all got our DNA, yeah? So our genetic code. So it's like a double-stranded molecule inside every single one of your cells. And everybody's DNA is unique, it's different. You inherit part of it from your dad, part of it from your mom, half and half. And they inherit it from their parents and so on and so forth. Now, your genetic code is unique. However, not all the genes that are expressed in your genetic code, sorry, not all the genes, you're like, make it simple, let's make it complicated. Not all the genes that are there get expressed. So epigenetics is basically a way of modifying how different genes are expressed into different behaviors, habits, all that,
Mm,
according to your environment rather than the hardwired gene itself. So in a way, it's like neuroplasticity. We thought the brain was hardwired, and now it's like, nah, you can experience all these different things and change your brain. Same thing. Your DNA is there, but you can alter the way that it's expressed.
mm, wow. Mm,
And it's the alteration that the DNA and genes are expressed that is the power of epigenetics, really.
mm, yeah.
Yeah. Because we've got this code, it's unique, and you know, we have the power to do so much more with it than what we have, I think.
Yeah.
Especially with all these new technologies and courses and knowledge that we're getting. There's all these things like, hey, in our genes, there may be alien DNA that, we haven't tapped into. So let's like, there's all these like light language practices and all that, right? Let's open up those parts of your DNA and
Mm,
see what that opens up in your life. So you're starting with this basic DNA sequence, some of which is suppressed, some of which is expressed, and now we're like, well, what are ways to open up some genes that may have been dormant or sleeping for a while? So I guess it wasn't a very straightforward explanation of epigenetics, but maybe you tell me what you hear and I'll tell you, yeah, that's it. That's what I meant. Oh, hang on, I can't hear you. Oh no.
okay, so it just cut out, but we're back in, and you were just talking about epigenetics. And what I got from that is, like you just said anyway, was that like our brain has neuroplasticity and it can change itself, our DNA can as well. So it's like we've got a bit of a blueprint, but we can work and expand and change that blueprint, even almost free will of your DNA. Is that
Yeah.
is that what you're thinking?
Yes, yes,
Mm.
exactly. That's a perfect way of saying it. Except instead of changing the genetic code blueprint, we're changing the way that it gets expressed in the world.
Gotcha.
I think that's the main difference in the saying of it. I'm like learning from myself what's the difference between epigenetics and neuroplasticity, but it really is that. It's
Mm.
like you said, we've got this blueprint and now we can alter the way that it gets expressed in the world based on our environment, basically.
So when you say expressed, it's like how we show up in the world. Is that what you're meaning? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
How our behaviors show up. It could be um, our intuition even, because if we're tapping into these genes that have been passed on from generations and generations and generations, and we put ourselves in environments where now that blueprint gets exposed and we have access to it, I assert we're going to behave very differently. I'm thinking people can probably develop their psychic abilities, things like that. Do you know what I mean? If they're
Mm.
tapping into genes that have been closed up, that are now like, hey, I'm out here. Check me out. I can be expressed and give you all this stuff that you've never had before.
Mm. And when you're saying that as well, like, and you touched on it before, like environment is so powerful in that, isn't it? Like if you are hanging out in a coven of very intuitive women, you are going to pick up on that, and it would activate that part of your DNA. And if you're hanging out in some sort of, I don't know, place when everything is shut down, then of course you wouldn't have that the ease or the ability to tap in as much. So it plays such a big part, environment, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. An environment, like I know we're covering a lot of arena with that word, but as you say, it's your social environment, economic environment, your physical environment, your emotional environment, but all of that falls under the word environment. And how your genes get expressed is dependent primarily on your environment. So 90% is environment, 10% is genetics. I keep on saying this because I don't think people know that or get that. It's like, yeah, you've got your genes, but how they get expressed is only 10% due to the genetics of it itself. The
Mm.
environment is what causes some genes to be, shut down versus being promoted.
Mm.
I guess an example of this is, let's say, a person with, let's say, depression. Okay, let's talk about that for a sec. So people with depression, right?
Mm.
Some people actually are predisposed genetically to
Yeah.
depression because, let's say both of your parents and their parents and their parents had suffered depression, whether diagnosed and undiagnosed. Those genes are now within you. And they're there to kind of be expressed, but whether they get expressed or not is up to your environment. So if you surround yourself with situations that are like depressing, those genes will be like, yeah, of course we're going to get expressed, versus if you surround yourself with an environment that is, about like resilience, about socializing with other people, being in communication, looking after your health, those genes don't stand a chance in being expressed.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and as you're saying that, I mean, the saying, you're the sum total of the top 5 people that you hang out with. Like it's so true. It's like, what are people, in your social circle, what are you taking in from the media? Like all this sort of stuff. And like you were saying before about just tuning into podcasts and different learning, like if you want to see something different in your life, A, you have to choose to make that change yourself. And B, like look at the environment that you're in. Is it helping you? Is it bringing you to life? And if it isn't, what changes can you make? Like we're so
Yeah.
lucky we've got YouTube and all these, rumbles and all these different things that we're able to tap into. So even if your environment where you are isn't quite what you want it to be right now, you have the ability to change your internal environment, don't you?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. It is. It's a very powerful place that we live in on Earth. I know it doesn't seem that way sometimes, but like this day and time, it's powerful. There's lots of things that we can actually do for ourselves, be unlimited in that way. you know, and especially with these learnings that we have and all these experts that we now have access to, it's a great way to generate something yourself, like being you yourself, the author of putting yourself into this new environment or causing this neuroplasticity such that you alter, you know, your life. But there's definitely opportunity for that now, a lot more than before. And I think this is part of that, you know, Christ consciousness emerging. You know, it's a theme, right? I don't know, some people may have not heard of. I've heard it so many times now that I'm like, I'm going to investigate what the hell is Christ consciousness, you know? And my understanding of it is, okay, there was this guy, right? Christ, and I'm not religious, by the way, but this is kind of my take on it. And, you know, he exhibited certain ways of being and acting that were considered, you know, maybe a little above average, right? Like he could do stuff that other people couldn't do. And then there's other people that could just, you know, he's just one example. There's other people that could do that too, you know, whether they're levitating or like, you know, like using telepathy or blah, blah, blah. And I think his thing was he wanted other people to open themselves up and be that themselves rather than gaining any more followers. Like he was trying to create leaders. He literally was like, hey, this is just one example of it. I'm the example, which means that it's possible for you too, you know? But the way it went is like followers happened, which I don't think was the intention. So my thing on Christ consciousness is that we're now going to awaken that within us, that, hey, we are the authors of our life. And, you know, we have the capacity to do what he did. So hence we're awakening this Christ or crystalline consciousness, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? But that's my little blurb about that. And as I said, it's got nothing to do with religion, nothing. It's just my observation on and my expertise of what I know and what's been happening, and a bit of my psychic intuition as well.
Yes, which you have a lot of. But that's so true. I mean, it really, to me, it just comes down to the power all lies within. Everything that we need is within. We have everything that we need. You know, if we're looking externally, then that's giving our power away. So we've got to remember just how powerful we are, don't we?
It's so great. And it's great to speak with people where you can actually voice that into reality, you know, and speak with people that give you the space to do that, like you're doing now. You know, as I'm speaking that, I'm just like, it's now so present and alive for me and like real, you know, versus me kind of just like thinking about it in my head, like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you can. You can. And let's talk about that. And then let's make it happen, right? There's something about voicing your beliefs and thoughts as well. I think that's really powerful, which, hey, you're running a podcast, so you would know. But it's like, then it's out here in, you know, shared with other people, and then it's up for grabs.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And like for me, I am a talker, and like getting things out. And sometimes, and I'm sure you'll find this too, and I'm sure you at home listening will find this too. You start to talk things out, and you say things, and you're like, oh, hang on, I'm not even agreeing with what I'm saying right now, or actually, I didn't even know that was there. Let me look at that, or that was just a whole lot of cold wash. Like it allows you just to speak out what is there and come from your heart. And if you just let it out, and everyone, I mean, everyone's different. Some people like to really think and ponder. I mean, I like to do that as well, but just being able to express is so powerful, isn't it?
It really is. I believe that it alters your brain if you
Mm,
speak things out loud. Well, I don't believe, I actually know that.
mm,
You know, the more you say something with language, with your word, like expressing it with word, is the
mm,
more, you know, it solidifies in your brain. And that's how personalities get formed. People, you know, sometimes find this example a bit extreme, but that's how you form the you that you know you are. What I
mm,
mean by that is, you know, like I said on Georgina's podcast, is you're born, you're a baby, you don't know, you haven't, you're like, you don't even know what you are. But then after many, many times of people being like, oh, Narita, hey,
mm,
Narita, you know, then you start thinking like, oh, Narita. So that's a loop now. But
mm.
then at some point you voice it, I'm Narita. And
Yeah.
when you voice it, you actually become Narita. And it's
Mm,
not that you are. That's just a circuit, a loop in your brain
mm,
going over and over and over again, creating the reality that, hey, there really is a separate person that's called Narita, which, you know what? There really isn't. There's no
mm.
such thing as valley. There's just a loop in your brain that makes you think you are. And the more you say you are, the more you believe yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good way to explain it. That's such a good way to explain it. Mm,
That's the power of affirmations as well.
mm,
Affirmations. Some people are like, it's really woo woo. Yeah, but you know what? It works.
mhm. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
neuroscience backed. The more you
yeah.
say it, the more real it becomes.
Well, it's
Yeah.
so true. It's so because we're all operating on these patterns and programs, or you'd say the loops in our brain and all that sort of stuff. And if you've said to yourself so many times, "Oh, I'm such a failure, or I'm not good enough," or "Who am I to do that?" Like if you've said that enough time to yourself, said it out loud, and many of us have, you've created that
Yes.
story for yourself. But if you don't want that anymore, because deep down you know, hang on, mate, I'm so freaking powerful, then you have to take the time and the consistency to change it, and it is simple, isn't it? It's just
That's
consistency.
right.
Mm,
Yeah, it's right. You're very correct on that one. It is simple. It's voicing these things that, initially may seem a little weird because you're right. It's not the norm because we're
mm,
born into a world where conversations like I'm a failure predominant.
mm,
Let's be real here. Like, most kids grow up and that's kind of the thing. Like, oh, I'm bad at this, so I suck at that, blah, blah, blah. I'm
mm,
bad and wrong and horrible.
mm,
And that's like that's the world we live in. And so when you start to say, hey, no, actually, I'm a boss or I'm a badass, whatever, right? Like whatever you say first starts a little like it sounds a little weird, but then it's like it becomes your reality, and then you get, hey, that's actually who I am. So
mm.
there's this intricate interplay between voicing something and it being real. Yeah.
Mm, it's so powerful. I love it. I love it all. And I know that you are at the moment, you've got a course coming out which is going to help people sort of really understand this on an even deeper level. And
Mm.
it's for healers, it's for people who love to explore, it's for people who are working in a practice and really want to expand on what they're already doing and sort of give it the science backing. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Because I think that's such a brilliant idea.
Sure. Yeah. Look, the whole purpose, that's right. So I do have a course. It's called Neuroplasticity and Epigenetics 101 for
Mhm.
teachers and healers. Pretty self-explanatory, so we will cover the topics of neuroplasticity from every possible angle and epigenetics from every possible angle. Um, and it will really empower people who are teaching other people or healing other people because, look, you're teaching someone something, you are actually causing neuroplasticity
Mm,
and epigenetic changes as well. You're causing that. So I think having a knowledge of that or how that actually happens is will be very empowering for teachers and healers,
mm,
even if you're like a Reiki practitioner, or I don't know, a psychic or a numerologist for that matter, or whether you're, running the frequency shift journal, like there's the backing of, hey, this is actually what I'm doing with my skill at a neuroscientific level.
mm.
And I find it's very validating for people. I mean, I am a scientist, so I do like evidence.
Yeah.
And I find that the more evidence people have, the more the more powerful and efficient and effective they become in whatever they do.
Mm,
So I think the course is really there to back you as educators and healers in your craft, but also explore. Like, in this conversation, this whole podcast, we kind of like have been all over the place, but
mhm,
that's also my intention with the course is that, okay, in an hour and a half over 6 sessions, each session being an hour and a half, maybe for 45 minutes, it'll be, I'll present in a very entertaining way what neuroplasticity is. But then for the remainder of the time, let's explore like we
mm,
have been in this conversation. Let's explore. Okay. How does that apply to you? What you're doing? Maybe we'll go places we've never, nobody's ever been before in our conversations. But like, that is going to be part of like an intricate part of the course because I think that imagination is really required to attain the levels that we're up to attain here.
yeah.
Yeah. Of consciousness, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know I've said this before. I always remember Bob Proctor saying, "Your imagination is the best nation there is," and I love that. I just love that. But I think I love the way that you're setting up the course too, because yes, people want to take in the information, but then they'll have questions and things will come through. And unless you're there and in that time and in that moment, like that's the power of having a group where you can ask questions and sort of spitball ideas and look at things. And that helps all of us because, like we said at the start of the podcast, none of us have all the answers. But we can have lots of powerful questions that can help us expand even more with what we're doing, right?
Absolutely. And I'm so keen to learn from the people in the course to, what arises from that.
Mm,
Like, of course, I'll talk about what I know and my expertise, but in that conversation, we'll explore like what arises from that, of what benefit that is to, humanity, even like that, and I'm really keen for those things that arise because I have a feeling that it's going to be pretty juicy and it could be very impactful. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, in
yeah,
this day and age, so to speak. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's the nature of the course, really. So it's a little bit nerdy, but as you've found out on this podcast, I'm pretty funny, or at least I think I am. I like to laugh at my own jokes. But look,
I laugh at my own too.
if anything, I'm pretty entertaining, which is backed by my 3811 numerology. Now I've got that backing, so I feel more confident in the way that I am or the way that I be.
Mm,
But I'll talk about neuroscience, but it's not going to be like a lecture at a university. Really
mm,
not. And I've done that too, but that ain't it. It's just let's cover these topics in an entertaining way, and let's have this mind-opening, mind-blowing discussion and exploration,
mm,
for the betterment of you and everybody.
yeah. And so when people sign up to this course, what can they expect to sort of like over the course of the course and
Yeah.
they'll walk away with as well?
Yeah, well, they can expect to have all the ins and outs about brain plasticity and epigenetics. Like, even if you don't know what that means, even after this podcast, if you're still wondering, perfect, come and do the course because we'll
Yeah.
literally explore that from every angle of your expertise, my expertise, or even if you've got no expertise, who cares? If you're like a lifelong learner, you just want to learn about the stuff, great. This is
Mm,
for you. Or if you're a parent and you're like, oh, whoa, I want to know that because, that's going to impact my child. Okay, great.
mm,
You can
mm,
expect to be an expert in epigenetics and neuroplasticity after those 6 sessions.
mm,
And beyond that, you can expect to be empowered in your craft, in your skill, or in your parenting, if you will, or as a human being. You'll
mm,
be validated, and you would have definitely caused neuroplasticity for yourself.
mm,
And, yeah, I think that's really the intent.
yeah. It sounds like a very powerful and exciting and expanding intention, and I think they're the best. They're the ones that you're open to what might come through, and that's not rigid. Then.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And it's not a pre-recorded course because I know a lot of experts are doing that, where they're pre-recording things and people are kind of buying. No, it's like I'm there. We can actually
Mm,
explore this right there and then. You don't have to wait for some Q&A. You da 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 da. I'm there. I'm
yeah,
available. Like literally, rip my brain apart. Ask me questions. Let's do this.
mm,
Live.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. So when does it start? When can people join? And by the way, we'll put all the links in the description and show notes. But yeah. So.
Yes. So we start pretty soon on the 23rd of September. So
Mhm.
that's just a little over 3 weeks from now. So that's a Monday night. We'll do it at 7 p.m. Melbourne time, Melbourne, Sydney, time,
Yep.
till 8:30. So as I said, it'll be 45 minutes fun neuroscience and then 45 minutes of exploration at each session. I will record the sessions so that, if people want to go over them or for whatever reason they do miss a session, they actually can go back and listen to it in
Mhm.
their own time. And we'll do 6 consecutive sessions from the 23rd of September. So 6 weeks on every Monday after that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so exciting. That is so exciting. So anyone who wants to join now, now because we had those technical difficulties in the before, I'm not sure how long we've been talking, but I'd love I know we've probably got a little bit more time, so I'd love to hear a bit more like what is on your heart at the moment, Val? Like what is yeah, talk to me, Goose.
Yeah. I love that. I love how straightforward you are. Really what's on my heart is just getting this show on a roll, like putting it out there and seeing really what happens. Really seeing, like, I have no agenda other than the expansion of human potential, consciousness and all that with what I'm doing, both in this course and in other, because I've got other, gigs. Like, for example, I'm going to be going to talk to a bunch of lawyers about the neuroscience of conflict at the prosecution office in October, so it's
Wow.
like, I've got all these like little different things happening, right? But ultimately, all of that is to forward the expansion of and the expansion of us as humankind. That's really what's on my heart. I really want to forward us as a people, as a species, in a way that betters everyone. I mean, it sounds a bit like, but I don't care.
Yeah.
That's what's on my heart.
Yeah, no, I feel you, mate. And I know that the people tuning in, that they've got massive big hearts too. They want to see the best for humanity. I mean, that's why we're all hanging out. It's why we have these conversations like, what can we do? And we all have that different piece of the puzzle that we can bring to the world. And it's all, so I think that's beautiful and I love it. And
Yeah.
you were just talking before as well, like you have written a number of papers in different journals, like lawyer journals and different things as well. Like, so, I mean, maybe just talk a little bit about that too. Maybe we can link those for people to check out as well.
Yeah, sure. Look, I've taken my freelance neuroscience in different directions. So I've spoken at a lot of yoga studios, about the neuroscience of meditation, breath work, like mindfulness, those kinds of practices. I've spoken to, and will be speaking to a lot of professionals, like lawyers. I've spoken to about, neuroscience of conflict, the neuroscience behind social behavior, for example. I've spoken to neurodiversity experts about what happens in the brain of, neurodiverse or neurodivergent people, and how to back and support them and that community. Like, there's just so much I'm spanning with this language of mine. So it's really, I think it's awesome, and I love that. I love the expansion of in all the directions in which it's going. But yeah, I do have journals. I've got other podcasts, that you can listen to and really explore whatever it is that you're into through the lens of neuroscience, which is my little special ability,
Yeah, your
if you
superpower.
will. Yeah, it is a superpower. Let's call it a superpower. I like that. Yeah. Um, and also, the fun thing about being human, I mean, now I'm like, gosh, why did I incarnate here? But the fun thing about being human and a neuroscientist doing the work that I'm doing is, like, I can just experiment on myself. You know what I mean? I'm going through my own healing journey and I'm expanding, and I'm like, my goodness. So I'm not just here to like lay stuff onto people. I'm like, dude, I'm part of this. I'm laying stuff onto me. I'm experimenting with my life first and foremost, because hey, it's what I've got. It's what I've got. So I'm here experimenting on myself, so to speak, and then picking out the good bits and relaying it to others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I love that you do call it another language. And you did tap onto this, my brain.
Uh,
You hit on this at the start that you do speak four other languages as well. What are
yeah.
they?
I do. So I speak Russian. I was born in Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do speak French because I was raised in Montreal. So I speak Canadian French, which I know a lot of French people are not fans of, but nonetheless, I speak French. And of course, English. And I spent a lot of time in Mexico over the years. So Spanish is very easy to me. I'm not like fluent, but you know what? I can keep a conversation. So yeah, those are the four. And of course, neuroscience and now numerology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 6 languages now, let's be honest, but
Yeah.
by the time it's the end of the year, you'll probably have 10 languages under your belt knowing you, Val.
Hey, let's wait. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So I would love to know now, like, so how can people find you? How can they jump in on your course? How can they follow you and hear all your wisdom that you've got to share across the socials? Can you let us all know?
Absolutely. So you can find me either on Instagram at love_of_brain. So Love of Brain. Or you can go to my website, which is www.drvalrytova.com. That's pretty much it. That's where I'm most active, probably on Insta and via my inbox on the webpage, which is also where you can register for the course if you're into it.
No, that's so cool. And like I said before, I'll put all of these links in the description and show notes. Is there anything else that you would love to share while we're hanging out, Val?
Yeah, look, I say if you're listening to this and you've got any questions, but like you've got all this, not all, but if you've got something stopping you,
Mm,
just let that one go. I don't know. Reach out to me, ask me anything you want to ask me. I'm pretty responsive, as you've noticed. I like to communicate. So let's explore. Don't just let that die within you, is what I want to say. If you've got any curiosities, you know, I'm here for you. So just reach out, let's chat like that. Yeah.
yeah, no, and you're awesome. Like you're so responsive and you can get an answer from you, and it's just awesome. So I love that you're doing this, and I know that it's going to appeal to so many people, this course, and even just what you have to share on your Instagram page. And if people jump onto your website, they can get everything that they need there as well. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how that all unfolds come September, and I have no doubt that it won't be the first. It'll sure be the first of many, so it'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
no, me too. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. Val, I have so loved talking to you, and I could talk to you all day. But like we might need a pee and all those sort of things, eat food and all that sort of stuff. Um, but I
Yeah,
have just loved connecting with you, and I'm so grateful that we did this today. So yeah,
me
I feel
too.
like because we had that technical bit in the middle, I'm like, I don't know how long we've gone for, so it's either long
It's
or it's
fine.
who
Yeah.
knows, but
Yeah.
everyone will be tuned in anyway. So while I'm thanking you, I will of course thank you at home for being here as always. Bloody love hanging out with you. So thank you for being here. As always, subscribe, give it a rating if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you do. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, give it a like, leave a comment. Always love hearing from you. And Val, I will love hearing from you as well too. She'll be in the comments and she can reply to anything you've got there as well. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks so much for being here, Val.
Thank you.